climate change is losing its grip on our politics. When the COP29 climate conference comes to an end next week, it will have concluded without an appearance by President Biden. This is not because Donald Trump just won the election, supplanting the outgoing American head of state on the world stage. The president-elect is not attending either. Neither is Vice President Kamala Harris, who he defeated November 5th. It's not just the Americans who are AWOL. Hardly any of the world's most powerful leaders will be making an appearance in Baku, Azerbaijan, yet another year that the annual conference of the parties convened to stem the problem of global warming, that has been hosted by the petrostate. President Xi Jinping of China won't be there, and neither will Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission. President Emmanuel Macron of France, the bedraggled face of Western liberalism, is skipping the conference as well. Also missing will be Lula da Silva, who is the leader of not just of Brazil, but also of the Group of 20, as recently as the Glasgow Summit of 2021. The annual climate confab was a who's who of global power politics. These days, it's more about who is missing. Trump's election may look like a black dawn to climate activists, but indeed, and it is indeed, when the timelines of climate action are so short and the path to climate stability so narrow and difficult, any setback is a disaster. In 2018, considering a world 1.5 degrees warmer than in pre-industrial times, the world scientists issued an unignorable warning about the consequences. In 2024, according to the Carbon Brief Analysis, we have already surpassed 1.5 degrees Celsius, and now we know almost surely that the United States will be leading the world more quickly and belligerently into the danger zone, not helping to chart a way out of it. But the skeptic's election is also a confirmation of an international turn in the politics of warming, as much as it is sharp or distinctly American break. Yes, a global renewables boom is well underway, with worldwide investment in clean energy reaching $2 trillion this year and total solar capacity doubling since 2022. But the climate logic of that transition increasingly glows unspoken in all but the most committed corners, replaced by chin-scratching about energy politics. Governments have retreated from even their legally binding promises to decarbonize, trusting markets to deliver comparatively meager emissions reductions instead, and activists have been unable to generate meaningful public outrage at the walkback. Partly, this is a sign of some success. When Trump was first elected in 2016, clean energy was something of a niche concern, as Heat Maps Robinson Mayer pointed out last week. Now it is central to modern economic development and to geopolitics. Almost everyone, even those places where political debate has moved on. In Europe, for instance, where politicians terrified of green lash have pulled back from their climate push, emissions nevertheless fell by more than 8% last year, nearly as fast as the year of pandemic lockdowns, though probably not fast enough to meet the most ambitious global targets. Globally, national economic and policy commitments are actually lagging behind market forecasts for renewables, though forecasts are not destiny. Many of the tech companies that won admiration for the world-leading decarbonization plans have watched their emissions rise instead, and some by as much as 30% in 4 years, thanks to the astronomical energy demand of artificial intelligence. In the United States, the presidential race featured little direct debate over the Inflation Reduction Act, a historic climate investment on which President Biden wagered much of his legislative legacy. In campaigning, his vice president spent more time boasting that the country had set records for oil and gas production. In his first term, Trump got an awful lot of mileage out of denouncing the Paris Agreement and the Green New Deal. On the trail this time, he made token references to the green scam of warming, but he focused his closing arguments on fear-mongering about gender surgeries for inmates, of which in total under Biden there have been 2 in federal prisons. The president-elect's energy and climate agenda remains murky, like so many of the plans he tossed off on the campaign trail. In the spring at Mar-a-Lago, Trump promised a group of oil and gas executives that for $1 billion of campaign contributions, he would grant them regulatory rollback in return. He has separately promised to claw back unspent funds allocated by the IRA, but plenty of fossil fuel companies have lobbied on behalf of the bill and its handouts. Some energy modelers have published research showing expected emissions backsliding for the US, though others have argued that the IRA is hardly accelerating the country's pace of decarbonization, instead merely piggybacking on historic trajectories proceeding independent of energy policy. Trump is bad news for offshore wind power and regulatory action on methane. Some environmentalists fear even worse setbacks for protections unrelated to climate warming. But for all his anti-environmental bluster, Trump's most conspicuous aide de camp is a clean tech billionaire Elon Musk, and the fact that congressional districts that voted for him in 2020 received 3 times as much IRA spending as those that went for Biden suggests that at least the possibility of a near future more in line with all of the above energy policy of Barack Obama and Biden, there will be many new liquefied natural gas export terminals approved in defiance of the energy modeling of climate science, which has repeatedly shown that even existing fossil fuel infrastructure isn't compatible with the world's climate goals. Coal, at least, is not making a comeback, but there may be something of a nuclear revival under Trump, and it's even possible that some efforts at permitting reform could produce green energy progress alongside the fossil fuel bonanza such deregulation would unleash. On the global stage, Trump's victory looks like effective surrender in the green tech arms race with China, which not that long ago formed the cornerstone of America's new industrial strategy, a confused hodgepodge of geopolitical rivalry and domestic economic repair that promised to restore U.S. manufacturing, might, and secure that an imperial share of the world's clean energy future. In China, emissions may have already peaked, a miraculous turn of events that has forced American hawks to present Beijing's commitment to clean energy rather than the opposite as a larger geopolitical problem. It also follows precisely the pattern that those studying the political economy of climate change have been predicting now for decades. Institutions of ecological hardship yielding an increasing zero-sum view of the world, citizens embracing a lifeboat ethics, vision of politics, and a dog-eat-dog approach to national identity that invites all of us on both sides of the aisle to shrink our circles of empathy smaller and smaller, defining success and failure in increasing relativistic and tribal terms. This is from the New York Times on DNYUC. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.